So in this game, I've got a couple interesting stories. Um, this was round 5 of the tournament, and if I was a little bit frustrated because this was the last game of the tournament, and even if I won, I'm not going to even be top 3. So I was a bit disappointed from having so many draws, and
Yeah, those are tough games when it seems you don't have nothing to win, and
yes,
you just have to go through it.
yeah.
Yeah, I know the feeling. But yeah, you kind of have to collect yourself and say, well, I'm going to end the tournament as well as I can. It's important to avoid disaster in the long run. It tells in your results and in your ratings. So it's an important psychological ability to master, I guess.
And this opponent was an older player. You know, most of my opponents are usually little kids. So he was an older player and he was playing pretty slowly. And I know this probably wasn't a good thing to do, but for some reason, I just thought it would be interesting to try moving quickly. I also, in a couple of the games in this tournament, I was kind of in time trouble. So I thought maybe moving faster than I normally do. I was trying that out this game. It was kind of, but also I didn't really feel too challenged during the game. I didn't really, I felt it was a fairly easy game to play. Um, and then one last very interesting thing about the game, which is very funny. Um, some point after I was already kind of winning, he made a move. So he made his move and then he wrote down his move. And I fairly quickly, within about 10 seconds, made my move in reply. And then as right after I moved, he said to me over the board, he said, "What are you doing?" And then I just like look at him like what? And then he said, "What are you doing? I haven't moved yet." But he totally did. He just made his move 10 seconds ago. And then so I was very confused and I'm like, yeah, like you just went there. You just
Really?
and then he said like, "Oh yeah." But, yeah, so it was kind of funny.
That's a difficult one.
Yeah.
uh, well, yeah, I saw the game and he made a lot of really strange moves, especially in the opening. He didn't challenge you at all
Yeah.
with white, and he kind of played within his first 3 ranks. It was very strange. But what about playing quickly or playing slow? It's very difficult to hit the right balance between just blitzing out the moves and or just taking too much time for moves that should be natural to be doing. Um, and sometimes we concede to the temptation of playing really quick to put pressure on the clock of our opponents. Uh, but it usually backfires in my experience. Uh, in these long games, it's better to play your as if your opponent didn't have time on his clock. He could be up an hour or he could be with 3 minutes, and you have to try to play the same. You have to stop looking at your opponent's clock because, especially with the increment, if you make a bad mistake or something that changes the evaluation of the position quite drastically, and he sees it, you're probably going to have a lot of trouble because he has the increment to recover himself, and it's very difficult to collect yourself when you make a mistake like that. Recently, I have had that problem. I was with like 50 minutes on the clock, and my opponent had 5 minutes, and I was in a completely superior position. But he was struggling, but he was holding his own. And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to put pressure on him on the clock." I blitzed a couple of moves, and suddenly I was losing within 2 or 3 moves, and I lost the game. And
It's
it made quite an impression on me.
and I know what I hear what you're saying because I've heard of this. I heard that it's not good to do this. It's not good to pressure your time on the clock. But it's such a hard thing to, it's such a temptation, hard temptation to resist, right? Because it seems like such a, it seems that that pressure would be so penalizing for your opponent. But
Yeah, I try to look at it this way. If I have, say, 50 minutes on the clock, I can look deeper in the position, and he's probably with a lot of thoughts on his head, and he has to take a quick and not disastrous decisions in just a split second. So if you make good moves, that's the worst pressure you can put on him. If you keep making strong, unexpected, and maybe unexpected if you went deeper than him and he missed it. Strong moves are the worst pressure you can put on your opponent in those situations,
okay.
and it has worked better for me than just trying to blitz out the move. You even the feel when you start playing blitz in those situations because you are more prone to bad mistakes. But yeah, it happens to everyone, and it's difficult to avoid even when you know it. But well, you have to make the effort.
Yeah, and I,
It
well,
makes a difference.
I like what you just said. That you said strong moves are the most difficult thing you could give to your opponent, even more so than time pressure. Um, I guess the other thing that sometimes tempts me to play quicker when my opponent is low on time is I don't want them to think on my time because they're already low on time. I'm like, hey, don't think on my time, right? But I do know what you're saying, and I understand it. This game, it was partly why I was moving quickly too. Is it was the last game, and as I say, I wasn't going to place top three even if I won, and also um, I was carpooling with someone else who drove me to the tournament, and we have to drive 2 hours back home. And he finished his game very quickly, so he's kind of waiting for me. I felt a bit pressured there, but I know it's still not a good excuse. But I'm just trying to explain why I did play
Well,
a bit
that's a
quickly.
good excuse.
Okay.
That's a difficult situation to. That's
But
completely.
he was at least he won his game, so he was happy. So he didn't mind waiting because yeah, he won very quickly.
Okay. Okay, let's go through the game. He played really oddly
Oh,
in
and
the opening. I mean,
okay,
this is as an ambitious an opening as you can get, especially after he plays Bishop E2.
yeah, there
Uh,
was. I think it's this. Oh, is it this one? I might be getting confused. Hang on one second. Was it? Okay, maybe I'm confusing this with a different one. There was a. It was either this game or the other game in the tournament. This type of opening, and I played knight c6, but I remembered when I came back home looking through my repertoire, and again I forget if it's this one or another game. They were very similar openings, but I actually ended up my repertoire moves is e6 because after d4 and trades we actually transpose into kind of a Sozin Najdorf. Um, but it might
yeah,
have
that's
been,
right.
was it
You
this
play
opening?
you play knight
Yeah.
c6 here. Yeah, he could have trapped you into some different move order so that you don't get your knight off now. um, he wasn't intending to. Clearly, he didn't want to play d4, but yeah, he could have gone d4 here. So, um, yeah, it's an alternative to well to keep the game uh, in the realms of what you play. Yeah, this bishop e2 is a tricky move order. It is for me too because I play the can and sometimes white delays d4 for a couple of moves to avoid certain variations. In this case, yeah, he could have gone for d4 right now. He wasn't intending to though. He castled and played e6, and now he played d3. Um, what do you think about his develop? his developing system.
I thought it was too passive. He didn't know. I know that he doesn't know opening theory because he is an older player. He's an older player that used to play in the 70s. He used to play in the 1970s, and then he just came back 2 tournaments ago to chess. So he doesn't really know theory, and yeah, he's kind of just returning back to chess. I thought it was a little bit passive, and
Yeah,
I it didn't concern me. Um,
yeah, that explains what you're saying. Might explain why he's being overcautious here,
mm,
because uh, more than cautious, he's being passive, as you say. This is very sad with a bishop on e2. If you're going to play d3 and e4, you might as well play g3 and bishop g2 and get the normal King's Indian attack, or a close Sicilian with a bishop on g2. Uh, that would be much better. The bishop on e2 has no perspectives in this structure, and it just doesn't go with this knight on c3, because at least if this knight were on d2, he would have the plan of playing c3 and d4. But with the knight on c3,
mm.
these pieces are just so badly coordinated that at this point it's very difficult to suggest white a clear plan. I mean, d4 might be the only reasonable move at this point, which is very strange for move number 6, but it seems to be the case. D3, bishop e7. Well, you played very well in the opening phase. I like that you just developed your pieces naturally and you took advantage of all his very strange moves. Bishop d2 is way too passive, but then again, at some point he might have to play d4 and play a Sicilian a tempo down, because I don't know how he's going to
Yeah,
to put pieces
it
in place.
kind of confused me. Bishop d2. I thought like at least bishop e3, so that I could
Yeah,
put his queen on d2. I guess maybe he wanted to put his rook on e1 and have that open that up sooner. But yeah, I don't know. Those it was kind of questionable. I thought black is at least equal here.
yeah. After bishop d2, I tend to prefer black. Yeah, that's the thing about being white. He can get away with being a little bit passive, and he might not even be worse from
Mm,
an objective point of view. But he's losing all sort of initiative that he could have in the opening, and he's getting into some kind of passive situation. And even if the computer said that this was equal, I don't see it as an equal position from a human practical perspective, because, well, uh, if you made a couple of uh, moves that have nothing to do with the position and with no clear plan, it's rather clear that you don't know where you're heading,
mm,
and I think that white is showing this. He's showing that he has no plan,
mm-hmm.
and his position is probably going to deteriorate further. You castle a3, for example.
Yeah,
Then again, we don't know what to do here. A6, that's fine. You have a space advantage on the queen side, and you're going to play b5. Bishop g5, well, a clear loss of the tempo. Bishop d2 followed by bishop g5. Besides, the bishop on g5 uh, isn't that great. I mean, it's not like he's happy to trade his dark square bishop with all his pawns, his central pawns on light squares.
also kind
Uh,
of weird too because he already played bishop d2.
yeah, it's a clear loss of tempo
Mm.
for no reason at all. He might as well have played bishop g5 in
Yes,
one
yeah,
move.
yes.
Uh, Queen c7, the best square for the queen, most of the time in Sicilian, so perfect. Queen c1, very strange.
Yeah.
Again, queen d2 at least, I don't know.
Yeah.
b5, b3, which is rather weakening. I guess he was intending to play queen b2, but it's a bit questionable that the queen is well placed on b2. Um, Bishop b7. Well, you finished your development, your pieces are well coordinated. We can't say the same about white pieces. And well, that's what I wanted to point out when I said that White can get away with playing a bit slow and a bit passive. If you do this with Black, you're probably lost at this point. You can get away with so many passive moves. I think you're objectively quite uh, better here. I mean, it's been so many moves that don't make any kind of sense for White that you should be clearly better at this point. But if he did this with Black, he might be dead at this point. I don't think he can get away with so many nothing moves. Uh, and well, he deteriorates his position even further with a4. And well, then you push him back. The knight goes to d1 and d5. Well, you're obviously a lot better here. You're grabbing some nice space advantage. He takes d5, and now
If we can just go back a move, I just wanted to explain my thought process here because I was kind of proud of this move because it shows a different way of thinking. A year ago, I might have just a very normal move here for me would have been to push a5, with the reason of solidifying our pawns, getting the extra space, and so on. But I think kind of a new realization, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but is that first of all, I feel that there's no rush to play a5 now. We could always play it later when we have no other ideas. But then I also thought another reason why I might not want to play a5 is if White chooses to play a5 himself, not now, but even later when I can't just take it back. I think this is a really hard pawn for White to defend. It's easier for me to attack than it is. It's really, really hard for him to come in and defend. But I basically withholding my urge not to play a5 and to play something that is a bit more in the moment, something that's more immediate of a move, something like in the center, which is what I played. I'm just kind of happy that I didn't just play a5. It's what do you think?
yeah, it's a big difference in terms of evaluating the position. You hit the nail here. You play d5, which is the move the position absolutely requires. uh, I mean, all of your pieces are better placed, and there's no reason for you not to hit the center and try to win space there because you're much better coordinated. And you're completely right that you can do without a5. Actually, a5, I find a5 a little bit weakening. There's no reason to leave this e5 square in White's hands. Well, it's not in White's hands because White is kind of tied down, but if in the future the position opens up, the b5 square could be a problem for you, and there's no need to rush into playing a5. You're right about that. You shouldn't play a5 just because, as it doesn't do anything for you at this point, and it might be a potential weakness. So d5, I think d5 is a very principled move, and that's what I liked about it. That's why I put an exclamation mark next to it. Yeah, it's what the position is
Yeah,
aiming for.
I was doing it for a number of reasons. One of them is I'm trying to kind of punish his bad bishop, make it even worse than it is right now, harder for White to do anything with it, and also we're taking like this square away from his knight. His knight is also, kind of clasping for air, and then I'm kind of baiting him into pushing the e pawn, and then we're also opening up our bishop. So I thought I kind of had multi-purpose move.
Yeah, anyway, I will be cautious about playing d4 for a number of reasons. The first one is that now White center is very solid and he has a pawn structure, a pawn chain that allows him to at least project playing on the king side with f4. And besides, if you close the center completely with d5, with d4, I'm sorry, I'm not certain about how you're going to push your space advantage on the queen side. Uh, and this knight, yeah, it's a little restricted, but now he has a clear
Oh,
route to a
right. Yeah.
new
Yeah.
square here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not so sure about d4.
Mm.
What I especially like about d5 is that it puts the question to the pawn on e4, and if he takes, as he did in the game, and it seems kind of like the only move because it's very difficult to defend that pawn. Um, then you're going to get a very nice space advantage, as you did in the game, and white is trying to breathe, and it's not getting easier for him. Um, in fact, he took on d5. He has no option but doing that. Um, After
Yeah.
e takes
Yeah.
d5,
Yeah. And his bishop will still be bad. His light square bishop is still bad after e takes d.
yeah, yeah, all of his pieces are very clumsy. And now, what do you think is the best way of recapturing on d5?
Yeah. Of course, this was something I was debating, and actually, when I played d5, I actually didn't. I didn't decide yet. So when I played d5, I didn't decide how I was going to recapture. So it was only when he played it I was thinking what to do. First of all, I'm trying to remember what I actually did in the game.
It's better
I
if you don't remember.
Yeah, I know.
At
I got to do
the-
it again. Well, I mean, like, instinctually, I would normally take with the pawn. It's just instinctually what I would do. But I think taking with the knight might be better. First of all, we've got this possible square that we could go to. We can't go there right now because of the knight. But we're also, I mean, I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to think out loud here.
You followed your first instinct in the game.
Yeah, because looking at it now, then I was just looking. Well, pawn takes doesn't look like they both look decent actually. Um, Maybe I
After
was
all, you're
thinking
better.
I might have still been thinking d5 might have been my plan if I took with the pawn.
Oh, d4 was still
That
an
might have
idea.
been my line of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, you actually took with the pawn, and you're a lot better. You're still clearly ahead. It's not easy for white to untangle, but
Oh,
I
sorry.
really like.
I'm just going to break
Yeah.
in again. But I think part of the reason if I did take with the pawn was I was looking at this weak square for his knight, and I kind of
Oh,
liked having taking that square away from him. And also, I think we're actually, well, of course, we're controlling e4 as well. I think that was my thinking. But I was
okay.
probably
That's
fairly torn. If someone put a gun to my head, I wouldn't really care which one. But yeah, I think that my main idea of taking was I wanted to take these squares away from any outposts of his knight.
okay. That's good. Well, that's good to know because it's a very good argument for it's a very good reason to take with the pawn. Um, Still, I think knight takes d5 is better here. There are reasons. Well, there are many reasons. We can split them into piece activity reasons and structural reasons. Uh, as for the piece activity, after you take with the pawn on d5, this knight on f6 is much less happy than it is on d5. I mean, from d5, the knight, as you said, uh, is planning to jump at some point to c3, which is a very weak spot in white's structure. f4 is another good destiny for the knight. And with knight takes d5, you immediately threaten to exchange the dark
Mm-hmm.
squared bishops, and he has a lot of holes on the dark squares. I mean, dark squares are practically yours. So if you get take this bishop out of the board, then you're going to be the owner, practically the owner of the dark squares, and this bishop is going to be horrible for the rest of the game. Uh, Imagine that these two bishops aren't on the board anymore. Then he practically can't move this knight because knight c3 is very strong. He can't move the knight on f3 because knight d4 is coming. If that's true, then this bishop is going to be stranded on e2 basically forever. And well, this bishop on b7 also has this diagonal open, so there's no pawn on d5. From a pure piece activity perspective, I really like taking with the knight. The c4 square, it's true, is now undefended, but knight b2 or knight d3 are very hard to achieve for white just because of this knight c3 that looks, um, yeah, it looks
So
just strong.
so with the knight on on d5, what might a follow-up plan be for black?
First of all, I would like to trade bishops if he agrees to. If he doesn't, for example, he plays bishop d2, I'm going to go bishop f6, and all of my pieces are fantastically placed. And a good plan, pretty much irrespective of what white does from this point, play knight d4, even if the knight is still on f3, looks very strong, because if he takes, then you're going to take back with the c pawn, you're going to take c takes d2, and this pawn on c2 is horrible. It's backward and it's an open file. It's going to fall probably. Yeah, maybe white still has ideas with knight b2 and knight c4, but knight b2 always allows knight c3, which is very uncomfortable. And your space advantage is such that even if white gets a knight to c4, you're going to have one on c3, and you basically can play around this knight on c4. Uh, just as it happened in that game, Alekhine Nastalos, I believe it was. I don't know if you got to see it.
I did look over it, yes.
Yeah, well, you saw that even with a knight on d5, which Alekhine didn't allow, but even that way, Black doesn't have enough because he only has one active piece, and the pieces from his opponent are all very well placed. In this case, it's something similar. Even if White gets a knight to c4, he's going to suffer anyway. For example, I don't know, knight 92. Maybe we can trade here. Well, this is just for our for argument's sake. Knight e4, knight takes, pawn takes, knight c4, and yet I don't think that white has solved all his problems, and I don't think he's even near solving all his problems. You can even start an advance of your pawns with f6, e5. You can bring the rook. You can play rook a8 and maybe follow up with f5, e4. And it's kind of tough to say what what white is going to do. Also, these two kind of equal these 3 pounds, and you have a vast majority here on the center that is going to advance pretty much for free. So it's very difficult to handle for white, even if he gets his knight to c4, which at this point I think it's best case scenario for white.
Yeah, your idea of um, your idea of knight knight d4 is kind of interesting because I probably would not have seriously considered this because I probably would have thought that these two pawns, especially, I might be maybe a little bit overextended. I might have been a little bit worried about them being hard to defend.
Could be. Well, that has to be checked in every particular variation. At this point, it's very difficult to attack this pawn on b4 and the pawn on d4. And it seems like you get so much space and and your pieces are so active compared to white that he's not going to get enough in this variation. So knight takes d5 looked really good. I really liked it. From a structural point of view, it also makes some sense because, well, comparing to e takes d5, for example, knight d4 might be a little bit more problematic. It might exist at some point because now he can get a knight to c4 if he took, but also your bishop would be kind of trapped here on b7. And after an exchange on d4, this pawn on d4 might suffer after something like queen b2. So conversely, with this structure, you have the semi-open d file, and that usually contributes to strengthening your control of an advanced post for a knight. So from a structural point of view, it also makes some sense to take with a knight. But, well, that's what I saw about knight takes d5 that I really liked. And I really like the fact that it also puts immediate pressure on white because you're really threatening to exchange those dark squared bishops, and he's going to lose any hint of control over dark squares that he had. He has really big problems with c3 and d4, and if he changes this bishop, I don't think he's going to hold for much longer. So, well, you took with the pawn, and I think your pieces are a little bit sadder because you took with the pawn, but you get a very nice space advantage. And as you said, this isn't an issue, and the knight on d1 is as horrible as it gets. So that's fine. Bishop b4, bishop d6, makes sense. And now knight e3.
My opponent spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
Well, not just here, but the next few moves when he's like bringing his knights everywhere. If I remember correctly, I think he was trying to kill me. Like I think he was trying to do finish me off here because he was. I have it on my score sheet, but he was spending like maybe an average of about like 8 minutes per move, moving in. I think he was really trying to find some type of combination to attack me. And then and then he seemed very puzzled that he wasn't able to like finish me off here.
He was kind of getting a little bit ahead of himself.
Yeah, a little impatient, and yeah.
It's kind of funny to think about attacking with these pieces here, but yeah, it can happen. I mean, you're so well prepared for pretty much anything he tries to do here that it sounds really funny that he was trying to finish you off.
Yeah.
Still, he played well. I mean, for all the time that he put into his next move, I think that he has to play knight e3. I don't know what he's going to do if he doesn't go this way. And now you might have done well to. I don't know if you spend some time on the next couple of moves, or you were playing quickly at this point in the game.
Well, I was kind of playing quickly for the most part, but I mean, it wasn't too bad. I wasn't like blitzing out every move. I was still thinking about the moves, but I wasn't thinking longer than I wasn't overthinking. Once I felt fairly confident with the move, I would just play it. I didn't overthink moves. But I totally cannot remember what I played here. Something that's just coming off. Oh, is that what I played? Okay.
Yeah, rook f8. Yeah,
I think.
it's difficult to remember because it's reasonable, but it's far from the only move.
Yeah, yeah. I think. I mean, one of the natural moves here would be to consider, trading knights. But I think partly why I moved the rook here is I don't think there's ever going to be any case like this isn't a case where I'm going to be pushing the f pawn and the rook needs to support it. So I thought we could, yeah, and I was probably thinking to double up the rooks,
Yeah.
and then
I'm
and
sorry,
then
I
oh
have to connect the battery. Just
oh yeah, sure. I'm just going to get my.
sorry.
I'm
didn't
just going to
realize
get
it
my
was-
score sheet. I'm curious how much time is left.
Okay.
Okay. Ooh. I won't look at the next move, so I'll just look at the. Okay, so I'm just curious here. I guess I didn't. Okay, I might have been. It's kind of funny because I say that I moved a lot quicker than normal, which I did, but it's not like because on this move 17. I've got a minute. I got a minute. Well, sorry, I got an hour 20 on the clock. So I only spent 10 minutes. I
Yeah,
guess. That's fast, I guess. Later on, I spent a little more, but and he's spent. Well, he has an hour and 12 minutes on his clock. Here.
Wow, so he played quite well. I don't know if quickly, but he wasn't in time trouble
Right.
at all.
Not yet, but the
Okay.
next few moves he will really slow down. He's trying to kill me.
He was just looking for the final details.
Yeah, I think
of his attack.
I think he really thought that he had some type of combination against me because he was really looking for it.
Well, rook f8 looks good, very natural. And well, you're going to play rook e7 and rook a8 at some point. I mean, it's the only open file, and he has a lot of trouble bringing his rooks to it, so it makes a lot of sense to double up there. And rook e1, and well, I really like playing against his pieces here because his knight on e3 is basically his only hope. But I was really looking at bishop c8 for a couple of reasons. First of all, the bishop on b7 is blocked by the pawn, and I don't really want to play d4 and let the knight come to c4.
Yeah.
So bishop c8 followed by something like rook a7, rook a e7, for example, or even g6. I thought about g6 too. I think I put in the comments out to the last move to rook f8. I know it looks weak.
No,
but
I might have actually been considering that as well. Because I know a move like g6 is really pushes knights away.
Yeah, it basically kills the knight on e3, and it's the only knight that had some kind of perspectives.
And he doesn't have a
Yeah,
dark squared bishop.
yeah, so he's not going to do you any harm on the dark squares, especially since you own the dark squares, so you can get away with playing g6 here. But I would play bishop c8 because, well, the bishop needs new horizons. New horizons. Sorry. Um, well, you played knight e5 here, and you mentioned that that's what you had in mind. And what
Ye-
was your reasoning behind
Yeah,
knight
well, it's
e5?
hard to remember exactly. Um, I think it was again a multi-purpose. First of all, I thought we're starting to open up the scope of the bishop, because we might not want to play d4 right away, but eventually I may be able to play it. So I wanted to improve my bishop. So you wanted to improve it as well on c8. I felt that my bishop wasn't doing as much as it could be, so that was part of the reason. And I also thought that overall my pieces are a bit better placed, and I thought if I traded knights here and then maybe doubled up, I thought I was kind of just I'm a little bit ahead in development, and I thought that might be worthwhile. And then I think I may have also possibly been thinking to put it to g6 if he doesn't trade, and then we've got this kind of open.
Well, yeah, your pieces are a lot better positioned, and he has a lot of trouble with his pieces, and that's precisely why I didn't like knight e5. Um, Provoking its changes when you have such a space advantage might not be uh, the best way to go. And actually, you're not quite solving the problem with the bishop because the problem of this bishop is structural. I mean, if this pawn doesn't move, the bishop is still going to be blocked, even if you take all of the pieces in front of him. The problem is that you don't get to play d4, or at least it looks like a concession because of knight c4. So the actual problem of this bishop is the pawn on d5. So if you want to improve the bishop, you're probably going to have to move it somewhere else. It's not horrible on b7 because, well, it covers some important squares, and d4 is and might be a possibility at some point. But the thing is, you own a lot of space here. It's difficult for White to relocate to his pieces anywhere because he just doesn't have any active squares for his knight or for his bishop. That is just a sad piece. uh, and you still can improve your position a lot. You can double rooks, play bishop c8 and double rooks, play g6 and double rooks. And at that point, you might even threaten d4 at some point, or even knight d4. White is left with basically no plan, and that's why I like a slow approach that doesn't commit you to any kind of um, immediate changes. Um, this kind of reminds me of the game about space advantage. We talked a little bit about space advantage, and that's why I wanted to take a look at this game because uh, it's good feedback for the themes that you studied. And, and as we saw in some of those situations, you might as well avoid uh, too many changes, especially if you kind of solve some of his problems. How do you think he can respond? He can answer this knight e5 here.
Well, I think taking, and then I don't know, possibly bishop f3.
Yeah, that's a very valid approach, and he's this is the simplest way. Take I don't know if it's the rook or the queen, which one you are planning. Uh, but well, queen takes, let's say for the sake of argument, and bishop f3. And now he got rid of a knight with no perspectives at all, and he got this bishop on f3, which was basically a dream for him just a couple of moves ago. And this opposition of bishops now doesn't favor you because you don't get to play d4, and the pawn can eventually even become a target. Not now because well, you have a lot of pieces there, but he kind of solved his terrible spatial issues in just a couple of moves. With three minor, this is a it's not a rule to follow blindly, but with three pieces over the board, if one side has an important space disadvantage, if he manages to change one pair of minor pieces, then he pretty much solves a good part of his problems, if not all. Three minor pieces are difficult to coordinate, but only two minor pieces might be possible for white to handle in this structure.
So I know this will completely depend on the position, but do you think it would be a good piece of advice in general, if you have the space advantage to avoid trading?
Yeah, it's kind of an immemorial rule. It's a very old saying that you should keep pieces over the board when um, you have a space advantage.
Okay.
Of course, it has
Yes.
a lot of exceptions,
Yes.
and but they mainly have to do with useful traits. If you have a space advantage, but um, you achieve certain goal by changing pieces, then that's perfectly fine, and you should go for it. Um, but especially in these situations when pieces are kind of all stepping over each other, because that's really what's happening with white's knights and bishop, then it's useful to keep your pieces just because they are clearly better. And if you can control any kind of activity by your opponent's pieces that have actually um, no good spots, then you should try to improve your position without helping him get rid of his problem pieces. So yeah, that's why I didn't like knight e5. And there's also another reason, and it's a tactical one. uh, it allows a counter strike that counter blow that uh, that when I saw knight e5 played, I immediately thought, well, that might allow this move. I will give you a couple of minutes to think about it. What could it be?
I'm surprised I didn't notice it because I did review the game with Stockfish. Let me think.
And maybe the move is not as strong as I think, but I think it's good. And
There is some weird possible idea. I'm just throwing out ideas of knight f5 and then actually taking on g7, um, or yeah, or
he
just
played knight f5, but he never
oh
got to take because you always have knight g6 at
oh
hand.
right,
So
yeah. Oh. No, but my queen's under attack.
yeah,
I'm just
and that's
wondering.
how the game
I was
goes.
just wondering if. Oh, I see. You mean afterwards? I could still close in, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you had that one under control in the game. Um,
Yeah. I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing it.
it's difficult to spot because it was pretty much impossible up to this point. But this central break, T4, well, it has something to it. If White gets away with it, it's very favorable for him, at least comparing to the position he had a move ago. Because then his knights are actually getting some nice outposts in the center. And so if you play c takes d, then knight takes d4, and he has a very good knight on d4. And actually, this guy has some perspectives now.
Yeah.
You might get some pawns that could become weak, especially the d5 one, to compensate for this weak pawn on c4, c2. So
No, that's an
yeah,
annoying move.
yeah, it kind of allowed him to free himself just all of the sudden.
Yeah,
And if you take and then take on d4, I don't think you're going to keep that pawn for much longer. I thought about knight f5 here. I didn't complete this variation.
what
I
about
kind of
rook takes and then queen
rook
f4?
takes. Yeah, rook takes, queen f4, and I thought I had queen takes
Oh,
here.
can't he
Yeah,
just?
queen takes.
Oh yeah, never mind. Well, no, can't he just go also just knight check and then knight takes e5? Oh no, so I've got two defenders. Sorry, I meant knight
Yeah,
takes
you
d5,
defend.
but it doesn't work.
Yeah, but this seems strong. Yeah, this bishop is under attack. You're going to play knight takes d4, and I'm actually liking white here. All of a sudden,
Yeah,
the tables were turned.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, d4. At least it let
No,
him
yeah, that's annoying.
free
That
his
that's
piece.
an annoying move.
It was difficult to spot because it was pretty much impossible throughout the whole game because of your knight on c6. But
That would have been very annoying.
95, yeah, yes, yeah, it kind of changed the pace of the game. I think you should take on d4. I don't like
Ooh,
knight
yeah,
takes
yeah.
f3
That's.
that much.
I would have been angry
Yeah,
to face d4 because it messes everything up. Like everything is ugly,
yeah,
ugly now.
that's part of the problem. You were much better without any kind of effort, and now you have to fight, and
Yeah.
that's difficult from a psychological point of view. But well, here you're still very much in the game. I don't even think that white is better, but yeah, at least his pieces are alive and kicking,
Yeah,
and
it's a
they
more
weren't.
complex game now as opposed to it was kind of more straightforward before.
Yeah. So yeah, 95 had that tactical inconvenience too. From a positional point of view, I don't like the idea of it's changing. Uh, of it kind of lets him off the hook because his pieces were so bad, and now he gets squares for all of them.
I'm
uh,
I'm almost wondering that I could have achieved some of what I was going for if I had simply gone this way then. Yeah, we could go to g6. I still kind of have this, like my goal was to kind of improve my bishop, but I'm not allowing the trade of knights anymore.
well, 97 is interesting. Now you have a clear route for the knight.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, g6, and it's an improvement over this knight on c6 that's kind of not doing anything. I would be cautious about d4 anyway.
Still,
I don't
yeah.
know how it works here, but I might prefer to have it under control. But this is definitely an interesting idea because the knight is quickly going to the king side, so it deserves attention.
But just comparing
Uh,
it to if you only had these two choices in a heartbeat, you're gonna go to knight e7, right?
yeah, yeah, totally.
So really,
I
it's
still
that
don't want to
that
fault him.
yeah I guess so that it's really the trade is really bad.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't seem.
Okay.
Yeah. He played knight f5, which is reasonable too. Um, Queen d7, and now kind of strange move. You're right. He was very ambitious at this point. I think he was trying to checkmate
He
you.
was, yeah. I
Knight,
could see it in his eyes.
knight to h4.
He spent a long
I
time on
mean,
that.
Queen.
Sorry, what? That's move 20.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are move 20.
14 minutes. He spent 14,
He
14
went.
minutes on that move. So after that move, he's down to 58 minutes.
So in a couple of minutes, in a couple of moves, he spent a whole hour of his time. Yeah, Queen G5 seems more natural, I guess. At least this knight is not going to the rim unprovoked. And well, knight
Yeah,
G6
that would have been
and
my
maybe
plan.
bishop
Yeah.
F1. Yeah, and well, this seems more reasonable for white than what he did, I guess. I don't see any reason to go to the rim like this just because. And you always have knight G6, which is kind of a guarantee that nothing's going to happen to your king. And you played well because you played it right away. Now that it's changed, I think this is a bit different now because well, he has to spend one more tempo going back with his knight, and then you actually got to play d4 very fast.
Yeah, he spent
Knight takes.
11 minutes on that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
He might have been a little bit frustrated to notice that nothing
Yeah,
much was
I was pretty
happening.
content here. I thought this is even an improvement for my pawns.
Yeah. I don't know. He might have to play knight e3 here because on g3 the knight is not doing that much, but the knight wasn't that great on e3 either. I mean, you could just double your rooks and you're still going to make very strong threats. d4, well, I like d4 now. I think it's a very concrete
Yeah, I
idea.
thought now because it's going to take him a million moves to get here, and he can't
Yeah.
get there. So he can't go this way, and if he goes this, I mean, I don't. He can't even do it that way. So yeah, I thought that he's not going to be able to reasonably get to this square.
Yeah, and you want to play it before he goes bishop f3, because then playing d4 lets him exchange bishops, and then you're going to be overextended, which is a very real danger now that there are less minor pieces over the board. It's kind of curious, but what was a very nice space advantage all of the sudden can turn into an overextended position and a lot of weaknesses to take care of. Queen f4, you played rook e7, which I kind of didn't like. Because his plan is actually to play bishop f3 right away, and it's changed a couple more of minor pieces, and that's going to be a problem for you. Well, because of what we were saying, you might be a little bit overextended here. So how can we prevent him from playing bishop f3 so easily?
Well, I'm not. Before I answer that, I mean, the other move here that's kind of screaming out is knight d4, knight d5. You know, knight d5 to c3. I'm trying to remember why I didn't like that. I'm not 100% sure why I didn't like it. Yeah. I must have had a reason, but because I mean, like knight d5, and if like queen d2 and knight c3, he can't really go here. Maybe could I have been concerned of knight e4? But we're just winning a pawn there. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I would have seen knight d5, but I can't remember why I didn't go for that.
Well, you might have thought, I don't know, maybe that you could just double rooks and it it will allow you to win the e file pretty much without any kind of resistance. And well, maybe you overestimated the fact that this is a good exchange for white. Might have underestimated the importance of exchanging these bishops for him. Um, I mean, I'm sure you saw that this was coming, and it might be a problem of evaluation because, well, if he gets away with it, he's going to be fine probably. Uh, so yeah, 95 actually seems like an improvement.
Yeah, I really am a little bit puzzled why I didn't play 95.
Maybe a queen g5, so that. But you can still go knight c3, I guess. I guess not. Or maybe that. Could it be?
Possibly. I don't really remember that though. But I mean, there must have been something because it's not like I missed. I didn't miss knight d5, but there must have been some reason, but I can't remember.
Yeah, still now I'm struggling to see how to prevent bishop f3 at this point because knight c3 maybe can take. It looks dangerous, but I can't. At this point, I can't refute queen takes c5. So, what should? Oh, maybe f6 here, or is this just too crazy? And if queen takes, knight f4, and where does that queen go? She doesn't go anywhere.
Well, G4?
If she goes to g4, knight takes e2 check, and the queen is.
Yeah.
That's strange.
Yeah, I guess he would have to go queen takes knight. Would be the best option. So the knight and the rook for the queen.
Yeah, that's strange. If he can't take on g6, then f6 should be a good move.
But to be fair, I don't think I saw queen g5. I'm not quite sure why I played rook e7. It might have just been a fact of being a little bit in a grumpy mood because not only was I playing quick, I was looking around the whole time. I was not looking at the board. I'm just like looking, and then he'd make a move, and I was not in a good frame of mind. It's possible I saw it, and then I just, for some reason, just played rook e7. I don't have a good answer because
that happens a lot. Yeah. I mean, even when you spend a lot of time on a move, and this might not be the case, but sometimes it happens that you spend a lot of time on a move and you go from one to the other, and then you end up making one that you didn't want to.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Sometimes you spend long time calculating all these lines, and then all of a sudden you see something new. You spend 10 seconds on it, and then you just move there.
Yeah. That's terrible, but it happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, rook e7 is not such great problem, but all of a sudden you're not even better now. You have to be careful, and that's mainly the effect of playing knight e5. Well, maybe it wasn't the only obvious move, but it had a great effect on the position because then he got to trade some pieces, and now he's. Now there's no space advantage, and let me stress this, because we tend to think about space advantage in terms of how advanced our own pawns are. but we have to consider the structure in relation to our own pieces and our opponent's pieces. White's position isn't good enough. I mean, isn't his structure isn't expanded enough uh, to give room to a lot of minor pieces. Three minor pieces was just a lot for White's position, but a single minor piece is perfectly supported uh, by this pawn structure, which is, yeah, it's pretty much on the three first ranks, and it doesn't give a lot of squares for White's pieces. But when there's only one minor piece, that's not such a big issue. I mean, this knight can go from one place to the other, and it doesn't interfere with the rest of his pieces just because there aren't any. It's changed all of them. And your pawn structure that was a pride in itself because it took up a lot of space and your opponent's pieces couldn't breathe. And now it's kind of exposed. I mean, this pawn c5 is or can become easily vulnerable. That can't be said about White's pawns, which are too far back into White's camp, so they are kind of difficult to attack. So now you are the one who has to be careful, and that's interesting because just a couple of moves ago, and without making any big or very noticeable mistake, the situation changed dramatically. Rook a8, but where he goes straight immediately because 94 is a blunder. Actually, he's losing a pawn here. Uh, but what if he didn't blunder? He could take on e7. I mean, he had to. And now I don't know how you should take here. If you take with the rook, then queen a8, and the pawn on a6 is falling. So maybe you have to take with the queen. And now I like a move like, for example, queen c6. There's no mate on the back rank because he always has knight f1. And now that's what we were saying. Your pawns are rather exposed, so it's not so easy to handle
Yeah,
this
it's
top
very
threatening.
interesting of your assessment um, of this position, because you're saying that if anyone is kind of in trouble here, it might be black, because my pieces may be possibly a little bit overextended. It's interesting you say that, because my evaluation of this position at the time was I was pretty happy here. I thought black was noticeably better, not like amazingly better, but I would have chosen black here, probably, almost every time. I I totally understand what you say, so it makes me look at this in a different light. But it's kind of interesting because I thought I had the space advantage. I thought this might be good for an end game because we're further up the board, and it's Black's turn to move. I thought I had kind of initiative on the e file, so I actually felt pretty good here. But yeah, so it's very interesting what you say, and I will try to look at that differently about these maybe being a little bit exposed.
No, there's a book by Michael Steen. It's called Simple Chess, but it's not a simple book. uh, and it's very instructive because he talks about space advantage, uh, not in terms of how advanced your pawns are and how far back your opponent's pawns are, but in terms of the capacity of the position to hold your own pieces. If your pawns are all in on the third rank, but your pieces have good squares, then your position has enough room or enough capacity to hold your pieces and not create coordination problem among them. Um, so that kind of surprised me when I first read it because, well, I also tended to think about the space advantage in terms of how far into my opponent's camp were my pawns. But when you look at the whole picture, actually, it makes sense. the space advantage is actually an advantage when your opponent's pieces are kind of stepping over each other. And if there are no minor pieces, then that's probably not the case, and you have to start considering the possibility that your pawns might be a little bit overextended and they might be becoming weak. And it was a very interesting concept. Gelfand also mentions it in his book, Positional Decision Making in Chess, and he actually talks about Steen's book and and, uh, and takes his concept of the capacity of the position more than how far into your opponent's camp your pawns. It's an interesting way of thinking about it, and I think it yields better results because you don't get fooled by the fact that your pawns are on the 5th or 6th rank. Rook a e8, and well, knight e4 was a blunder, and you took advantage of it very precisely. I really liked it. Knight takes, d takes. Well,
Oh,
if he took with
yeah,
yeah,
sorry. And so after this move, I, I think I went Queen B7, but
yeah,
at this time, the guy that gave me the ride to the tournament, my friend that carpooled with me, he was walking by and he looked at the game for a few seconds, and then walked off. And then after the game, he took me aside and said, and yeah, by the way, he's about a 1900 rated player over the board.
oh,
And he said that Queen F5 would have been a very, wait, was it here? Yeah, I think Queen F5, he said, would have been, he said he would have definitely played Queen F5 here, especially when my opponent is kind of not so, kind of a lower strengths opponent. Because he said, like, he said there's a really good chance that he would have taken here and fallen for the mate threat. And it's kind of a tricky move. And I looked at it after, and yeah, that's I did not consider that, and that would have been a very, very tricky move.
his system will have crashed. I mean, it's so surprising that this is possible, but it's very pretty. Queen f5. Yeah, the pawn is falling anyway, and your
Yeah,
queen is well.
it gives
It's
him
better
it gives him
placed
another
than.
chance to screw up.
Yeah, and I really like it because your queen is going to be better placed than it is on b7, even after you take on e4. So it might as well be the best move on the position. Queen d5 also could be another idea. And yeah, these moves seem to they seem to keep the position of the queen closer to the center. I really like them. I really like Queen f5. Tell your friend that he had a very pretty idea. It's not easy to spot.
Okay.
That's not easy to spot.
Yeah, and he just stepped by for 10 seconds too, and then walked off.
And he immediately, well, impressive. Queen b7 is good too. You're going to catch that pawn, but yeah, I like the other one because the queen is
Yeah, and it gives, and
is
I
very
like it because
powerful.
it just gives, it's an added, like, it doesn't really change the fact that we're going to win this pawn, and it just gives an added chance for the opponent to actually fall for a mate in two.
Yeah, it could happen. I don't think he's going to fall for it because he might question why you put your queen
Yeah.
in that situation. But even then, the position of the queen on f5 would be great after you take on e4. So I really like it because it's beautiful and because it works. uh, King f1, rook takes, and now he invited massive exchanges on e4, which can't be good because, well, there's only one open file, and after the rooks are exchanged, you are bound up on the pawn endgame, so it doesn't work. But well, he's in real trouble anyway. Rook e1. Well, he's actually losing this endgame if you took on e1. Uh, I really like your decision anyway because it's not like he has anything useful to do, but you could play rook takes e1 here. Uh, the reason is that even if he gets to c4 and you get your king to these seats, then you can play I'm sorry, your king between these seats and c seats back
Yeah,
and forth because this
he'll
pawn on
be
a6,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I was because I think eventually he will be in Zugzwang and he's going to actually have to push his pawns into me. And I have this nice reserve tempi too.
yeah. And this pawn is actually very well placed on a6 now because it will allow you to play king d6 with a king on c4, and he couldn't play king b5. Another good reason why a5 wasn't good in the opening.
Yeah, that was my whole plan. No, I calculated
So
this
here
whole thing. No.
it could be useful in an endgame. At some point, he's going to have to return, and then you're going to go king d5, and then you're going to go c4 when he goes back. And yeah, the endgame was winning anyway.
Yeah,
But f5,
I thought I could take and probably still be winning, but I thought it might be. I just felt safer playing f5. I kind of liked having pushing a pawn and then moving my king forward before I trade rooks. I thought it was a little bit safer.
well, yeah, the thing is that he doesn't have a plan here. I mean, what he's going to do? If he abandons the e5, then you come with a king, and um, well, he probably has to play rook d1 and try to stay still. It's not going to work. You can get your king to d5 and play c4, and you're going to win this eventually. But well, what he's going to do? He played rook e2, king f7, king e1. You can still trade, but you can choose when you're going to. And well, you won this quite easily. You were very effective here.
Yeah, I was starting to get a little bit annoyed because again, this was the last game. They got to drive 2 hours home, and it's like, come on, just resign.
But he kept going
Yeah,
for a long while.
yeah, and then he finally resigns
But
here. Yeah,
yeah, it was a very interesting game. I really liked your playing the opening. Uh, you you basically ignored his very strange play, and you put your pieces in very decent squares, and then you handled it pretty well. I wanted to see it because I wanted to have some feedback on the issue of space advantage. I thought I left you a game, Rubinstein Duras.
yes,
Could it be?
I did look over that, and I went over it fairly slowly and went through all the commentary, but it's still hard for me to properly grasp
Yeah,
the
of
games
course.
because they're high level games.
Oh, of course, it's impossible to just bring everything to one's game. Otherwise, we would see a couple of games and we would be monster chess players.
Yeah,
But well, that game was mind blowing for me. I mean, it was amazing how easily he just kept uh, constricting his opponent, and he left him with nothing to do, and just the way he wins the endgame is
yeah.
quite
I
impressive.
heard
Uh,
from a couple of because I went through it while on stream, and a couple of my viewers said they knew that they heard this game is supposed to be like one of the best games ever played.
Yeah, it's just very clean. I mean, it's amazing by even by today's standard. It's a spectacular technique by Rubinstein. Um, and yeah, since we had talked about space advantage before, I thought it was a good idea to go over this game because I noticed those very interesting moments in which you could have handled things a little bit different.
Mm.
And well, I think that's how you make progress. You study a theme, you go over it, you analyze your game, you just try to see how you should have applied it, and well, I think that's the way. That's the way to go. Um, it was very interesting one, and I noticed that in general in this tournament um, you played very solidly, and you applied a lot of concepts that uh, maybe you didn't before, or this
I think
so
I'm
frequently as
much
this
more.
guy.
I think I'm much more cognizant of control of squares now. um,
Yeah.
Square, square control and being very, very cautious before I make certain pawn moves. I think that's definitely something that I am consciously very careful of when I play games now. Like, am I okay? Is this going to give him better control of the light squares and so on?
That's great. And I actually saw one of your last streams, and you were contemplating playing an F5 with black, and you said something like,
Oh,
"I'm
Alessandro
going to
will
give a
kill me.
that's what I found,
Yeah,
and I laughed.
yeah,
And I really like that you didn't
yeah.
play
Okay,
F5.
okay,
So
yeah. I'm whenever in kind of mid game or late mid game, and then there's always that option to play like F5 or or F4. I'm very very careful about that now.
that's great. Most of the time, say no to F5.
What was that?
That's great. Most of the time, say no to F5. That I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you again. Maybe next week I think there's still two more games from the tournament that we haven't looked
Yeah,
at.
there are two.
Yeah. So let's see. This was round. So we did round one, round four, I think, and this was round five. So we have rounds two. Oh no, wait. We did round three as well. Maybe there's only one more game.
Let me see. We
We
did
we,
the one
we
against Bobby Abramson.
yeah, and we did one against Tyler
Again,
Fowler. I thought I could have.
I think we did the one. Let me see. The one
There.
against Mock. We didn't.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, did we not do that one yet?
I think we didn't see the one against Tyler Fowler.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Okay. Well, that one will be an interesting game
ah,
to.
this is, this is incomplete. Ah, no, you said that it was a draw at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
After
It was a draw.
okay, okay.
That one is interesting
After
because
six.
I analyzed the game with him afterwards, so I know everything he was thinking. So
Okay,
yeah,
that's good to
yeah.
know.
So we might
That's
have
more fit.
we might have two more games to look at
Yeah,
for
and
next week.
against Simon Smith. That's the other one. Yeah, that this is
Yes.
the one that got away.
Oh,
Yeah.
I also analyzed it with him as well. The opening,
Okay.
yeah, or the game, yeah, yeah. So
Have
we can
those
do
two
that, and then
next.
I in 2 weeks I've got my next tournament, so I booked my hotel. I'm all ready to
Great.
go. Yeah, 6 rounds.
Great. Oh, this
Yeah,
is longer. Okay.
yeah,
I like it that it's a bit longer, so it gives you more chances to catch up if you
yes,
make a draw or if even it's a game.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks
Well,
again.
thank you.
Yeah, I'll see you next
Bye
week.
bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.